On GDC Podcast Episode 5, we got a special guest, Hannah Flynn, with Sunless Skies developer Failbetter Games. And she'll talk about marketing your indie game so people might actually buy it, maybe. Also, stay tuned for the latest GDC 2020 news and hear opinions about 2019's best games. Back in a sec. Hey everybody, we're back. This is Chris Graft, editor-in-chief of Gamasutra, and I'm here with my co-host, Alyssa McAloon. Hey, Alyssa.
Hi, I'm Alyssa McAloon. I'm news editor and associate producer. Producer? No, what is my job? Publisher.
Do you want to be a producer?
No.
You got it. Just add it to your title. Let's go right into some GDC news real quick before we bring on our very special guest. So GDC 2020 is coming up in March still, right? We haven't shifted the dates.
Mere months away.
Yeah, mere months. I can't take it. This is like it's like 3 podcasts away.
Oh, don't
2 podcasts away.
I don't like that.
I've changed. Yeah, my perception of time into podcasts. So I hope that's a acceptable unit of measurement. It's coming up March 16th through 20th, 2020. Get that year right, 2020. Registration is open at gdconf.com, and we would love to see you there. We would. It would be nice, wouldn't it?
No,
we
it's
actually have
lovely atmosphere.
It is a lovely atmosphere. I mean, it has been for the past, 31 years? It's been
35?
Nice.
Something like that, yeah.
100? The century? This is the 100th GDC? Yeah. We have some, honestly, really exciting... We're finally starting to talk about the talks that are going to be there. So, Alyssa, have you heard of this game called Death Stranding?
The walking simulator. Yes, I'm familiar.
Is it? I thought it was a stepping and falling simulator.
Yes, walking.
Dropping your packages all over the place simulator. But there's going to be a talk deconstructing the AI of Death Stranding. That's going to be there. It's going to be great. There's also a little app called Apex Legends, known around Gamasutra's hallways as Ape Legs, but more formally as Respawn's Apex Legends. So yeah, there's a post-mortem on that. Come on down for that. And last one I'm going to mention, although there's so many others that are live on the site right now, on GDC's website right now, there is going to be one on the ashtray maze in Control. What do you think of that, Alyssa?
I haven't beaten Control yet, but I watched someone play that part, and it is visually stunning, so I can only imagine the making of that has to be wild.
Yeah, I mean, watching games nowadays, it counts as playing, I think. So you have played the ashtray maze. So
Dang.
Yeah. And then lastly, there are a bunch of alt control GDC. These are games that have these really wacky alternative controls. This includes this year there's going to be a competitive cow milking simulator there. I've seen it in pictures, and it's exactly what you would think it would look like. Kind of like rubbery udders there, and you go up against your friend and you milk a cow. Alyssa and I we were raised in the Midwest, so I think we would be pretty good.
It'll be a nice little sense of home, I think, in the middle of a crowded convention floor is just some udders and a pail. Yeah, absolutely. And then last of all, you can, for our potential GDC guests who need some financial help, we also have what we call a low income pass lottery, which you can apply for. So check that out on the gdconf.com website. So on to our guest. She is director of comms. That is short for communications, I think, at Failbetter Games, where she's worked on Fallen London, Sunless Sea, that is singular, not Sunless Seas, Sunless Sea, as well as Sunless Skies, plural. She also came up with a really cool campaign last year, the hashtag Love Indies campaign, which we'll talk about. She is a marketing guru in the game industry, and in her past life, she worked in book publishing, art, and charitable causes. She is a past and future GDC speaker, and she's spoken at a bunch of other places, sharing her knowledge. It is Hannah Flynn. Hey, Hannah.
Hello, thank you. That was the warmest introduction I've ever had on a podcast.
You know that I feel like it was the warmest one that I've given,
and extremely accurate.
Yeah,
commendable.
We pride ourselves in the facts here on the GDC
fact-finding
podcast.
research was worth it.
And it's funny to think I am previously a speaker at GDC as well, because I spoke at GDC Next.
You did, yeah.
But
I watched it.
I'm really thinking of this one as my first go. I don't know.
This is the big show.
This is the big show. Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts about your GDC Next talk back in 2014, I think, was that you were a little under the weather, and every time you coughed, you asked the audience to applaud.
Yeah.
So it was the most applause that I've seen during the entirety of a GDC talk.
And I think it was the last talk at GDC Next, maybe ever.
Yeah.
I think I closed it out with a lot of applause, but I was quite sick. And I'd been in the industry for a total of 5 weeks or something at the time.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And you already knew so much that you had to tell everybody.
I came in on a high. Yeah. I had a baby in the middle, and now I'm back.
You're back. All right. So give us a little bit of your background. You actually came to Failbetter Games from a non-games background.
Yeah, I don't even have game-based qualifications. I don't
Me
know
neither.
what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing here. I worked previously in film, then in publishing for one of the biggest publishers in the world, if not the biggest, and then for museums and galleries digital team making games and interactivities for children and young people, and that's the biggest gallery in the UK. And then the biggest children's charity in the UK. And after a while of not really knowing any of my colleagues' names, I thought I'd quite like to work somewhere very, very small. And I joined Failbetter. I think I was employee number 8.
Number 8.
At the time there were only 8 of us. And that was much more my tempo and much more comfortable for me. No longer having to try and curry favour with people in a different continent who you sort of have to guess at their email and you need them to do something for you in short order. Just, it's very stressful. Very stressful. Gaming was less stressful than that, weirdly enough. I joined in 2014, right on the tail end of the first bit of Gamergate. It was less stressful than working for a children's charity.
Oh, good Lord. Okay, I guess counting my blessings there. So it's I always like stories where people come into the game industry after not being in it, because I know that a lot of people kind of are on the outside looking in and maybe think that they can't get in, or that their background won't benefit or is not transferable to a career in the games industry. So what informed how did your non-games work inform your current work in marketing and communications in games?
Well, I've always worked across marketing and comms, so the beautiful part of that discipline is it's completely transferable. I could go and market kitchen cleaner if I felt strongly enough about it.
Do you feel strongly enough about it? Okay.
No, I'm looking at my kitchen right now and it is not clean. So I don't think I'd be a good ambassador for that industry at all.
Let the record show, yeah.
Because comms and marketing is basically about the audience and platform. It's about finding the one through the other. So when I arrived in games, I didn't really understand, say, live streaming, and I hadn't used tools like that before, but because I'd built audiences before and I understood a bit about human behavior and what people are looking for out of community, it's something that you can really apply. So because getting into games is extremely competitive, and because roles like mine are really very rare, even within the small industry that we're in, it is slightly heartening, I think, for people to think, I could do this for another business and learn, and then take those skills plus my personal knowledge of games, which I had, and turn that into a role for myself somewhere, working on something that I love, which is what I did.
Yeah,
I feel
great.
like that kind of like accessibility has changed from like 2014-ish when you got started to like the current state of the industry, or is it about kind of the same?
I think it is getting better, partially because I've done a number of talks where I just had big letters on that said, hire a marketer. Hire a marketer. Jesus Christ. Oh, can I curse?
Yeah.
Never stopped us.
Okay,
I don't think Jesus Christ is a curse word.
Well, I stopped myself halfway through Jesus Christ because I was thinking of something else. Because people, I think marketing is becoming something more and more studios need in order to get any traction. And people are really having to consider what is possible within what they have in terms of resources and money, obviously, but also their ambition and how they can make something happen that matches the ambition they have for their games. That's very much changing. The need for what I do has definitely increased, but as Failbetter have been ahead of the curve on a few things and lucked out on a few things, and one of them I think was hiring a fully fledged full-time marketer in 2014.
Yeah. Can you, before we go on more about the marketing details, can you tell us a little bit about what Failbetter does and the kinds of games that you all make there?
Yeah, we make really beautifully, exquisitely written, story-driven narrative RPGs that are heavily text-based. The most recent has more than 800,000 words in it, but primarily about giving extremely memorable, strange, oblique stories that you don't get anywhere else in games through a setting that we've been developing for 10 years that's called Fall in London. And all of our major games so far take place in this alternate history Victorian Gothic universe that we created ourselves and is now absolutely massive.
And these games, they've been quite successful too, because of you.
Well, yeah, and because they're really good, which helps.
Sure.
You sort of have to have both. You have to have an exquisite product, and then you have to sell the crap out of it. There's no sort of getting away from you needing to do both of those things. The part of the reason that we're able to maintain and sustain our success is Fall in London, the original game, is a browser game that is still going. It's going to be 10 in January, and has a subscription model that supports it. It's free to play, and we have X thousand subscribers still, that enables us to take a few more chances and to have something to fall back on if one of the premium games that we make alongside Fall in London doesn't go so well. So that is the bedrock of our business, is this ongoing sort of game as service, which enabled us to do a Kickstarter for Sunless Sea, which succeeded brilliantly in a different age on Steam. When we launched Sunless Sea, we were on the front page of Steam for all Steam users for about 4 days, which is a big piece of pie, and you don't get pie that big these days.
No.
Certainly not a game of our size. And then that in turn enabled us to keep going, do another Kickstarter, create another early access title, which we launched this year, Sunless Skies, and which, for the glory of everything, has been even more wonderfully, warmly received, and I would say has sold sustainably well, and we're very happy. But the difference between when we launched Sunless Sea and when we launched Sunless Skies is quite marked in terms of what you are, the audience you're able to reach.
Yeah. How about we just cut to the chase, and I'll just ask you, how do you market an indie game? Like, where do you even start forming a marketing plan? Some people don't have one at all and don't know where to begin.
With conviction, Chris.
Conviction.
You have to believe that marketing your game is something that you need to do. You have to start there. And I guess the answer to this this question comes differently if you are a person or 2 people or 3 people in a micro studio versus a team of 10, 15, 25 people. If you have 25 people and you don't have a marketer, I'm afraid you've already made a few errors. But if you're marketing something by yourself, the way that you start is with a really good store page, with a really good Twitter, and with a press list and a press information. You commit to doing those things, you nurture them, and you what's the word where you grow something and you cultivate it. You cultivate those things. Start making a press list. Start day 1 by looking up a game that is a bit like what you want to make, Googling the reviews of that game, looking at the journalists who wrote those reviews, finding those journalists on Twitter and saying, hey, I saw you liked X, I'm making Y, can I put you on the press list, could I send you a key? And do that until you have a list of people who are warmly interested in the sort of stuff that you make, and do a little bit of that every day. The big mistake is feeling like marketing is a big homogenous single activity thing that you can spend lots of money on, and if you don't have any money you can't do marketing. You can, you just need to account for marketing time within your development time. It is part of development, it starts at the beginning of development, but it's people who ignore it because it is daunting that will miss out.
So you say it starts day 1 with development. How do a developer who's like, here's my project, here's my idea, here's the game we're going to make, we're starting today. Yeah. What would be the actionable things that a marketer would do in that situation?
I would ask them who it's for. That gives you almost everything you need to know about what to do next. We know our audience super well because a lot of the core people who are with us now have been with us for 10 years, 8 years, since Fallen London was launched. So we know where they live, not in a creepy way. We know that they love to read, they love to feel clever, they love mystery, they love representative characters, diversity. We, as far as we know, were the first commercial RPG to have a third gender option at all. So we know that a lot of people are with us for that stuff. And we do quite deep research with them. We sort of exist alongside them in our Discord and in our various community forum spaces. But if you don't have that, then the first thing you need is to figure out if that audience exists. Doing research on similar titles, establishing what you think the ambition for sales could reasonably be, and pitching yourself at a sort of sufficient level of activity, of marketing activity, to grow a community that could support that type of sales level. And being realistic about that stuff, finding a niche and being happy to be niche is kind of the modern way. Find an audience who will love it. 10 people who will love it is better than 50 people who think, meh.
You're talking about market research here, and you mentioned Discord. How do you collect this information? How do you quantify it? How do you use all that data and information and apply it to development and marketing of a game?
Well, cunningly, this is kind of what I'm covering in my GDC talk.
Oh,
yes. So I'm doing a talk called Next Level Indie Game Marketing, which goes into things like how do you use player data research and understanding and knowledge of your audience to inspire ideas that will work for your specific game. A big deal is being specific to your thing. People oftentimes will look around and see these kind of big, flashy, splashy marketing ideas, or they think the first things that come to mind when you think of video game marketing is like massive announcements attached to big award ceremonies, or huge side of bus or side of building advertising. But being very specific to the tone of your thing and the information that you know about your audience is what enables you to narrow down, and then you sort of put that through your mill, and what comes out the other end is the idea that will meet those wants and limitations that you have. A good example is the launch campaign for Sunless Skies. We had minimal advertising budget, and we don't do a lot of advertising. So we wanted to use that money in as a constructive way as we possibly could. And we knew all these different things about what we wanted to achieve. We knew that the launch window was extremely short, in which we could get enough public, conversational and algorithmic interest in the game in order to really, when they say launch, they mean, punch through the atmosphere, launch the thing, and get that attention. So we kind of narrowed absolutely everything into a 24-hour period. We also knew from our understanding of our community that they are very charitably minded, and we knew about our games from having already made Sunless Sea that we weren't probably going to get a lot of attraction with streamers. We get some streamers, but it's about specificity again. The people who really want to stream it are very, very few, but they will really go for it. They want to read all the words, they want to wear a top hat and have a little train whistle and just go completely hard for it, which is amazing. But we wanted to combine all of these things and kind of bake them and construct them into something that would give us that launch velocity. So we did the Sunless Skies 10K challenge, for which in the first 24 hours after we launched, we gave £1 per minute of streamed content to the gaming charity Special Effect, aiming to get 10,000 minutes, hence the 10K challenge. And because it was charitable, original, it convinced people to stream it who might not otherwise have done so, and we actually ended up with about 28,000 minutes of streamed content in the first 24 hours, which was fantastic and was a big part of the reason why we were able to chart on Steam in that initial period.
Stuff like that's so creative. Do you feel like some developers who are kind of new to this are maybe they're, they can come up with a good idea, but are standoffish about trying something new like that?
I think it's really intimidating to do something like that.
Yeah.
And I also think, like, if you can't afford to hire a marketer, then absolutely don't, because it will cost. But if you can afford consultancy, talking about your game in great depth with someone who doesn't understand it very well is a great way to find the points at which you can convey exactly what it is, and a good marketer will be able to reflect back to you like, oh, you have something there. What do you mean people don't really want to stream your game? Oh, well, it's a load of setup and you get really breathless. People get tired of streaming it. Well, what if, it is really intimidating. But this is not to say that everybody should go away and do exactly what I did, because it won't necessarily work for another type of game. But it is about mashing those things together and getting something new, or even involving creative idea generation tools, rolling a dice or something, to throw in some random elements until you get something that you think might work.
Yeah. And you also last year formulated the hashtag Love Indies campaign. Can you explain what that was all about? That was a success.
Yes, it's been great. We've done it twice now. Love Indies is a campaign that goes across players, developers, and platforms to basically encourage everyone to rate, recommend, and review indie games. Because we all play games and we all sort of fail to review them, even if we really like them. It's a chore. So we turned that part of... you can't just keep tweeting, please review our games. Please leave me a review. I really like it. It would be really nice if you just keep saying the same thing over and over again. It doesn't get you anywhere. So I chewed on that for a little while, and it came to me that every developer has this problem. So we reached out to a load of developers who we knew, and we put together a participation guide that was extremely low friction, really easy for people to pick up. It had all the little social media things that people needed, all the links, example tweets to do, and just sent it out into the world. And then we had, thousands and thousands of uses of the hashtag during the Love Indies campaign period, which was a week the first year, 2 weeks the second year. And it had some really amazing effects, like a permanent change to Itch, where Leaf from Itch had seen the campaign and created a tool which surfaced any games that in your library that you'd interacted with but never left a review with. So it made it really, really simple for people, and just everybody got a glut of these reviews, and all the developers were so happy to see people reviewing their stuff. It just gives you such a boost, honestly. We've just reached 1,000 reviews on Sunless Skies, and we practically had a party.
Those are great numbers. And can you explain for listeners who might not understand, why is the number of reviews so significant for game developers?
It's significant for morale. We slave away. We slave, and we just want to know. Sure. We just want to know what you think. But it feeds into what I would call the health metrics of your store page. I say when you start marketing your game, you should start with the store page. No amount of stuff that you do to drive people to your store page will sell your game if your store page sucks. So when you put it up, go back to it. Every 2 weeks, review it, change things, tweak stuff. We were named a Game of the Year recently by a couple of wonderful outlets, so I've put that on a bit of artwork and slapped it on the store page. Your store page has to look healthy and alive, and a contributing thing to that is review numbers. On Steam particularly, it's the sort of I don't know what they would call it, the review descriptor, like overwhelmingly positive or very positive or mixed. Heaven forbid mixed. Oh, can you imagine? Kiss of death mixed.
Just give me a negative. At least that piques my interest.
And maybe mixed makes people read the page a bit more like, oh, maybe. But what you really want is overwhelmingly positive. Which is extremely hard to get. You have to have something like 100 reviews in the last 3 months, and it has to be 95% or more positive, which we have at the moment, which is really nice. On Sunless Skies at least. But the rest of the health of your page is like, can people understand your capsule image? When they look at it, do they understand the vibe of what they're getting? Do they get the genre of your game from what you're putting on there? Genre is so important to convey. It's not... People think about, I want to put something on telly. I want to watch something. I want to watch a comedy, or I want to watch a thriller or something, a crime drama. And you can tell from the pictures of these TV shows on Netflix what they are, what type of show they are, you know. But people, I don't think, recognize that when it comes to pitching their games on platforms. So selling the genre and getting like the actual verbs that the player is doing, and using every bit of the page. Like I do Steam store page reviews or store page reviews every Wednesday when I'm on the train to London, and I do looking at other people's pages and just going through all these things. And so many times people have not been specific enough to describe their own game in their own tone of voice. They haven't given enough imagery, they haven't given enough sense of genre, and just a few changes of word brings the health rating of the page up. And it just raises people's confidence to buy. People look at your page every day and they decide right then, is this something I want to buy or not? And if you're like, I just haven't updated my page in like a month, then people are going to look at it and think that it's crap. Hard truths with Flynn today. But you have to kind of give yourself a recurring task to look at that and treat it as like it's the shop front. It's the book jacket for your game. It's so important.
How often do you update pages for Failbetter Games?
Yeah, for Skies I do every couple of weeks, or every time I have a new bit of news, like any Game of the Year placements or stuff like that. For Sunless Sea a little bit less now because it's 5 years old, but I will definitely be reviewing that for the 5th birthday, which is coming up in February.
Oh, wow. For a Steam page and like kind of see what works and what graphics you want up there and stuff like that, is that somewhere we're having an established community or like a Discord you have regular interactions with kind of comes into play where you can bounce ideas off of them or solicit feedback directly from the community?
A little. It's a bit of a curse of knowledge type thing, double-edged sword. The closer they are to you, the more they want to be kind to you. So they probably would not tell you if there were lots of problems with your page. But we have done, for example, we use SurveyMonkey, we make surveys. We had some capsule art for Sunless Skies that really wasn't doing the job for us. So we made a survey where we put together 4 different variants and we sent that out both to people who knew what we were doing and people who'd never heard of our stuff. And it really helped us figure out that what we had was too complicated. And we had some options that were like a lamppost in space, a Victorian lamppost in space. And all the people who knew our work was like, yeah, Fallen London, I get it, nice. And all the people who didn't know what we did, we had way too much percentage of those people say, I don't know what I would be doing in this game. I don't know what it is. So now it's literally a whacking great train in space. It's a steam train in space, and it's flying, it's coming right at you, and it's got a beautiful serif font. It says Sunless Skies, and it says literary, and it says fucking space train. And it's the best damn looking space train image on Steam. I made sure of it. So that was the answer was, oh, I know what I'd be doing in that game. I'd be driving a train around in space. That's cool, because trains are cool.
Trains are cool. I imagine it's kind of a similar issue for like when you're writing something, you're too close to the topic and you hand this to someone who's never interacted with games before maybe, and they're like, I don't know what any of these words mean.
Yeah.
Is there a similar trap for like game development and game marketing where you have to kind of have these fresh eyes or make sure you're not using the terminology too much to have a wider appeal?
Oh, yeah. This is something that kind of comes to me often because of my past doing marketing for other stuff, that we have quite an insular situation, certainly with PC gaming and the way that we put together our pages for these games, where you can say things like, can you just say this game is a turn-based RTS, and people who already play that kind of game and like it will go, cool, I'll have that, that looks great. But if there are people out there who would enjoy playing whatever that is, but would not know what that meant at all, and that jargon wall is so hard in games, and I'm never sure where my job ends. Is my job going to be to sell these games to people who right now don't even have a Steam account? Is that it, or am I selling to the Steam user? And I think part of that conflict comes from the fact that Fallen London is the most accessible game possible. You play it in a web browser, you can play it with a screen reader. So the makeup of people who play Fallen London is extremely broad. Ages, 10 to 80. All manner of gender types, all manner of everything. And that is not the Steam audience. So I'm always pulled one way and the other, because we have these people who really love what we do, but they've never played a real-time game where you have to control something using WASD, and they don't want to really play that, but they really want to get more of our stories. So that's just that's a point of challenge for me all the time.
Is there a kind of similar conflict where you have when you've been working in the same IP for like a decade now, trying to make things and market in a way that appeals to the people you already have in your ecosystem versus the people who are out there and trying to get new players in? Yeah,
it's hard, that. It's hard. And Sunless Skies is a sequel, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a sequel. We did a lot of work to make Sunless Skies much easier to get into than Sunless Sea, which was extraordinarily punishing to the point of being completely obfuscated in the first couple of hours. To a lot of players, it was too difficult, just immediate nope. So Sunless Skies has way better onboarding, and we've definitely done a lot of work then that translates to more sales of Sunless Sea. After people have tried Skies, they're ready to go get more of the stories and kind of put up with the fact that Sea is harder. But I'm looking forward to doing stuff that is not a sequel for in the near future, in the medium to near future. That's going to be pretty cool.
Cool. The way that you talk about your your career at Failbetter and just talking to us right now, so much of it is injected with this knowledge of your community. It just makes me feel like you are so in tune with the kind of audience that you want to reach. So my question is, how do you even begin to build a community around a game, and how do you nurture that community and help it grow as time goes on?
I think with a strong perspective and what you might call a super objective. So it comes back again to being specific. Like, we recently launched our own Discord, having kind of crouched on the shoulder of a community Discord for a while. And we invited people over, and we had set it up in a way that was very surprising to them in a lot of ways, because that's our specific way of doing things, and that's the vibe that you get when you come to us. And a couple of examples: we have a channel where you can self-assign pronoun roles. Really important to our community that they are able to be recognized for the gender that they are. So you can assign roles that are sort of based loosely on the ones you get in Fallen London, and it's cute. We also banned memes.
Good work.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I feel like really good about it. But the people were aghast. It took about 24 hours for people to sort of go, oh, well, okay, whatever. But the fact that we've banned memes, which sets us apart, I think, from literally every other Discord I've ever looked at, and I did lots of research, that is a statement of intent, and it is specific to Failbetter. It encourages people to have conversations about other stuff without pulling on, just the latest meme that it might be something that half of the other people in the channel get, and you get to feel smart by sharing it, but not that smart really, because you're sort of alienating people. It's brought people back in from the community who'd left other spaces because they felt just excluded, that they didn't understand what was happening because they weren't like deep into meme culture. And instead we were retelling Norse myths, and we've gone through a whole big recommendation thread about webcomics and about Russian literature and all these things that are so idiosyncratic and true to what Failbetter offer. People who have literary interests, people who have a huge amount of interests outside of games, and they're still happy to be in our Discord. What was the other thing I said? Specificity and something else. I was very clever when I said it, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll just, our listeners can just rewind it. And
that other thing, do that as well.
Yeah, the other thing. I'm just talking about the, cultivating your community, and how do you feel people end up entering your community? Like, why does somebody come to your Discord channel, or why does somebody want to be a part of it?
That's a really good question. I think because it is safe and because it is different. You can be yourself there in a way that a lot of other, not high toxicity necessarily, but really highly online meme literate, fast velocity kind of communities can be quite off-putting. And to the extent where I think a lot of people just feel like Discord as a general thing isn't for them. Or the way I feel when I'm watching like a live stream with a lot of people just going keck, face on Twitch, like, oh my god, this is not for me. And in terms of how people find us, there's a really interesting phenomenon with Fallen London, that Sunless Sea obviously brought in a lot of players to Fallen London as a persistent game, but we still have people being referred in from TV tropes. Or people discover it via browsing TV tropes. Or
really,
once every 6 months there'll be like a free games you can play on your lunch break thread on Reddit, and Fallen London will get voted to the top, and then we'll get a few thousand people join from that, which is just extraordinary. When I think of the longevity of Fallen London, but it's formed like a huge part of people's lives. It's for a small number of people, like they check in every day. You spend actions in the game to read stories, and some people are planning a year ahead of what they're going to play. They are grinding out a vial of Hesperidian cider, which is sort of immortality juice, which something you spend every action on for a year. So they join the community for something to do while they're doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the obviously one of the big challenges today is, there's so many games out there, and people are talking about discoverability. So, what's your view on today's marketplace, and how do you've talked some ways that you've done it, but what's your view on discoverability and being effective at getting your game in front of potential customers?
Yeah, it's much harder than it used to be, and I think that's the entry level thing to say about it, isn't it? Really, but it bears repeating. Choosing the space that you want to be in is probably the toughest decision, like making sure you have the product that will succeed in the place, and then being lucky or fortunate or timely enough to get an exclusive somewhere that someone will pay you for. That could set you up for a long time. Apple Arcade this year has secured the next year's development for tons of studios out of nowhere, or an Epic exclusive, or I think the tightening up of discoverability means that people just need to have commensurate ambition for what they're trying to do. Being able to sustain what you're doing, making it sustainable as like your first point of business, is much more important than it used to be. And it all ties into these ideas of crunch and one big hit, and being like a one big hit. You can't look at one big hit and then do anything to make another one. So you have to kind of look at your life. Like, it's really serious stuff. Look at your life and what do you want it to be like, and can you work another job and make your indie game in 2 evenings a week around caring for your children, and is that what you want to do, and does it really make you happy? I think that's the questioning that the democratization of the tools and platforms has led to. Not that I want to put anyone off doing it, but just to be real with yourself, and don't hurt yourself. Like, we won the Best Places to Work award this year and in 2017, and we are sort of more proud of that than we are even of our games. We want people who are healthy and happy to come in, and they don't dread work on a Sunday night, and the work works for their life. That's what we really want, and to keep doing it. That's the key.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do something that makes you happy seems like this weird novel idea when you frame it that way, but there's a lot of just kind of chugging away and like making yourself miserable for this thing that you think is gonna be this hit or make you happy or whatever, but you have to think day to day rather than like the grand picture, kind of.
Yeah, basically, you've only got so many hours on the planet. Like, what do you want to spend them doing?
all of our podcasts get kind of existential at some point.
It's about the 40-minute mark every time.
It's always around the 40-minute mark.
We've cleared all the chaff now, gang. Here's the wheat.
Yeah. Let's do this. Well, we are starting to get to the end of our time here. I do want to ask, because I think this is kind of a practical question, what have you found that have been some of the most effective tools for you as a marketer of games? Is it like email? Is it trying to get featured on a storefront, discounting games so that people see it? Like, what are some of the things that really work that people should pay attention to?
Collaboration and strategic discounting, I would say. The biggest things this year that have moved the needle on selling Sunless Skies since it came out have all been big sales, targeted sales, and digital collaboration / events with other developers. As an example, the publisher Fellow Traveller put together an event on Steam, within Steam, called Ludo Narracon. Ludo, narrative game con, and it was a bunch of their games that they publish, and a handful of other people who applied for it. I saw it on Twitter and I applied for it. Another important reason to be on Twitter, because you find these things. And that was like a 3-day sale where we committed to streaming a live stream of our game on our page, and that was on the front page of Steam in the carousel with other stuff. But it had live features, it had live streaming features, and it had discounts, and we were, I think, one of like 16 featured games. But we were giving something to get that really fantastic placement and really like targeted specific niche. And we also have done like similar things with a slightly more altruistic bent. Like we were part of a Steam sale around the charity War Child, who help children in conflict, do a big thing around Armistice Day in November. So we created content within Sunless Skies of an urchin, a young person who had lost her parents in conflict and was the star-worn urchin who'd seen too much of the skies and just wanted to hide away on your ship, and she could become your ship's mascot. And because we generated that and came up with that, again in line with the kind of stuff I'm talking about, charitable, and despite having a game set in Victorian times, we do not just let children get tortured and messed around in our games. It's one of the content tenets that we had. So she's a really optimistic character. She's not in a workhouse or something, which you'd often get in these slightly more bleak Victorian-based games. And that enabled us to get some visibility around that sale. And then we also raised money for charity. And I realise I'm saying all these things, and it is contingent on having someone at Steam who listens to you. Not everyone has that. No. But collaborating with other people who are at a similar level to you, or a slightly more aspirational level than you, is a really good way to reach new audiences. We're in a couple of bundles now across different publishers, which makes our game appear on the Steam pages of other games in a way that we control, and not just algorithmically, which is pretty cool. So those are the big successes for us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you talk about you just mentioned, of course, like you have these relationships, but I mean, Failbetter was at one point, you said you were employee number 8, and you got to start somewhere. So, it's not like it's unattainable to gain these important relationships with platform holders and whatnot.
No, and I think you just have to. I think a big part of what makes us look legit in the eyes of these platform holders is how much we care about our presence on their platform. For Steam particularly, we are sort of Steam first. We're porting Sunless Skies next year, but we developed it with Steam audiences in mind and started there. And we play the game. Our page is gorgeous. It looks great. It's literary. It's a quality prestige sort of a game. That's what people want to see. It matches up with their kind of aspirations for the platform, I feel. It's something that you could put on itch with a really interesting indie aesthetic and some really traditional interactive fiction with no walking or anything. That's perfect for that platform, and that will really energize that audience. So set it all up over there and see how you get on there. Tailor what you're doing to the space.
Yeah, it seems like a theme there, being specific and tailoring it for the space. So is there any parting thoughts before we let you go? You're in the UK, and
it's my bedtime.
Yeah, it's bedtime.
It's not even late. I'm just a parent.
Oh yeah, I mean, me too. I get it. Is there any parting thoughts, tips for indies who are kind of trying to get their bearings marketing in this really tumultuous and difficult marketplace?
Just do something now. Do something now, because it's the same thing as prototyping. You don't know what the finished product will look like and how it will behave until you've tried something. And there's a lot of paralysis in the face of, oh God, I don't even know. What should I tweet? What did you work on today? that would make a funny or interesting GIF that is in reasonable shape that you don't mind showing to people, tweet it, tag it Indie Dev Hour, show it to someone, begin by doing, and don't sit on your laurels, because you need that cultivation time ahead of you.
All right. That sounds like a great place to stop. And thank you so much for joining us, Hannah. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And best of luck with all your future endeavors.
Thank you.
And we're back. That was a great conversation.
Oh yeah, that was. Marketing's wild.
Yeah, I know. It's difficult, just the attention span of people, and it's me too. I'm not criticizing people for having the attention span of a butterfly these days. I'm the same way. It's just we all get pulled in so many directions now. Even when I'm playing a game, I notice that I get distracted by other games.
Yeah.
And then I go and start playing another game. Do you do that?
Yeah, especially the last month of the year when I'm like, oh, I want to do my Goaty list stuff. Oh, but this game looks really cool. Oh, but what if I play Red Dead Online for 5 hours every day instead? And it's
Yeah, I know. I keep getting distracted by these older games, and it like Destiny 2. I'm randomly decide to get back into Destiny 2 when I need to be catching up.
Now. Well, it was good before, but they did a lot of good changes recently, so you're going to be hooked.
Yeah, I know. I like it. Yeah, but that's not a 2019 game. Shadowkeep came out. I guess that you can kind of that's why it's difficult with these end of year lists, press outlets. We kind of I think we should keep on doing it to recognize the new things that come out every year, but we do it as a kind of tradition, and a tradition that I, as an editor, I sometimes question the value of it, because people do play. There's so many live games now. What's a 2019 game? And is a game disqualified for this reason or that or the other?
Well, I always found and I think every year I've written a Game of the Year list for Gauntlet's Future, I've gotten Hitman on there. I don't think it's going to be on there this year, but I'll figure it out still.
Yeah, you'll find a way
it's
to
because
get
of
Hitman on
live
there.
games and I will. And there's just games aren't this one-time event anymore. The entire landscape has changed.
Yeah, and a game that might have launched this year that stinks might be good next year. It might be great next year. And they just missed the boat on the accomplishments that that they got.
Ubisoft's Rainbow Six Siege was when it launched in 2014. I'm bad with years. When it launched several years ago, it was a shadow of what it is now. It wasn't that great, and now that game is doing really well. It's got a solid community. It was up for an award at the Game Awards because they recognized in that way that games are kind of this process that evolves beyond a launch, especially when you take as good care of it as Ubisoft has, and they're really good at that.
Yeah, and to segue this back into marketing discussion with Hannah.
Marketing.
Yeah, I mean that is marketing. Live games, there's so much marketing involved with these games that are updated constantly, and Failbetter, they also update their games regularly. They're living, if you will, and
and while the games are living, the Steam pages for them are kind of evolving in a similar way as well, where that process never really stops. It just changes.
Yeah, and it's been like this forever. I feel with indie games in particular, people don't, they just don't market their games enough, or they don't, do it with the same kind of intention that Hannah does. I mean, she clearly does her research, deep research on the audience, on what they want, how to better serve them, how to expand your audience. She talks about, the store page, which seems like an obvious
thing. People know that they should have a store page, and they're going to have a store page, but what makes a good store page? When you Google a game's name, its title, that's what you come across. The Steam page, or the main page.
It's not just a placeholder, it is an advertisement for the product you're trying to release, and it's easy to forget that.
Yeah.
And go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to say that the people who are Googling, the game in particular, they're already aware of it, or else they wouldn't be Googling the name of the game. So they're finding that they're already close, to being part of your community, to being converted into a customer. They're that close, and then they get to the page, and then, they might just be like, nah, as we said during the broadcast, the interview, nah.
Yeah. Nah. There were like a lot of takeaways that I didn't write down fast enough because my keyboard's loud. But one of the fact that marketing should be a day one part of the development process is something that I think it's not the easiest thing to wrap your head around, because what am I going to do day one? But she had some very good advice for what you should do in those early stages. But otherwise, it can be too easy to kind of be like, okay, well, I'm going to work on my game. And then now that I have something shippable, I'm going to start, now that it's ready to go, I'm going to start getting attention on it. And you can't segment the process like that.
No.
And she had a lot of really good advice on how to kind of bring that process together and weave marketing throughout every step of the development process, which was nice.
Yeah. And I hear similar stuff from other people who market games, particularly indie games. It's funny because, I keep an eye on the Steam charts, and sometimes it'll be like, this number one game just came out of nowhere. And it's like, then you Google it, and it's like, oh, it didn't come out of nowhere. They've been doing they've been cultivating this community on Reddit for the past 2 years, 3 years. So there is this perception among some developers that, oh, this game just came out of nowhere. They must have, gotten linked somewhere, or got lucky,
they had
or
a
just
good idea and it took off on its own.
Yeah, it took off on its own, which I can't think of a case. I guess if I thought hard enough, I could think of an exception. But it's usually when you see that quote unquote out of nowhere hit on Steam, number one, do yourself a favor and Google the name, and then find the Reddit page that's been there for 3 years, that has crap loads of followers, and then you'll
study
see
that and learn from that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, let's talk about the end of year stuff real quick.
End of year stuff.
Yeah.
We were planning things earlier than we did last year.
Yeah,
so I'm very happy with how the team's going.
Yeah. For Gamma Sutra, we do our end of year lists, and I'm also pushing back a little bit when we're going to publish these. We're going to do some of the big ones properly. We're going to wait until the end of the year, just in case something comes right before the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve. If a game comes out and it's just mind-blowing, and then we can laugh at everybody who published their list too early.
Someone did that last year where everyone was like, all right, I got my list ready to go. And then the next day, some really cool indie dev published some really cool game. And I'm like,
Yeah. That'd be that's what I would do if I was an indie developer, a really talented
ruin people's
one.
game of year list.
Yeah, just release my amazing game right before the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve. Yeah, that'll really get those journalists.
That'll show them. So we've got best trends coming up in Kama Sutra, best events, best devs of the year, and then best games. Is that all of the categories we hit?
Yeah, we're all going to do games, Apple Arcade games.
Apple Arcade, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really like a lot of Apple Arcade games this year. There's some good stuff.
It's my Grindstone subscription, but sometimes I remember to branch out a little bit, and I like having narrative games on my phone, so that's really nice.
Yeah, Grindstone is great. Bleak Sword is incredible.
I will sing NeoCab's praises. It's so good.
Yeah.
Dear Reader is another one that is very good. That doesn't have a lot of cool characters or attention or anything on it, I think, but it's just a really cool literary puzzles.
Yeah.
It's really great. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I stayed up until 4 a.m. playing it.
Yeah. It's been interesting seeing the kinds of games that are being recognized. Some of them are kind of what you would expect on other publications' top 10 lists. Like you got Outer Wilds, that's being really talked about. That's a great game.
I know.
Yeah.
The first 10 minutes are great. I don't have any free time.
Hey, you got plenty of time.
I'll get it to it after my list is written before the end of the year, unfortunately. But
yeah, just make sure to play it before the stroke of midnight. New Year's Eve, and it can make your list. So, yeah, I think that's all for this week for the GDC podcast.
2 more podcasts away from GDC.
We are officially 2 podcasts away from GDC, which I don't know what our podcast plans are exactly, but might get a torrent of like a torrential downpour of podcasts out of GDC during GDC week, but that's not a promise.
All that good content. There'll be good content no matter what.
Yeah, there'll be some kind of hashtag content. Yeah. So check us out on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and we're at YouTube, where you can stare at a static picture and listen to us, or just change tabs on us and just listen to us out of your computer speakers.
We'll never know either way.
Yeah, you could play a video game that we are talking about on the podcast on your computer while listening to it. I'm not sure. I think my brain is melting.
It's the last month of the year. It's the last couple of weeks of the year.
Yeah. It's just it melted. It's gone.
Yeah.
So, all right, everyone. Thanks again.
Cool,
and
thank you.
If you enjoyed us, if you love us, leave us a good review. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Give us a 5-star review on iTunes. I mean, this is what we have to do, right? That's what Hannah was talking about.
Reviews are important for podcasts too.
Yeah, that's right.
They really are. Please like.
Yeah, please like. Be kind. All right, thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.